Vampires are timeless creatures in every sense of the word. You can find mythology that stems from the fear of the undead across the globe, and for centuries these stories have been forever evolving and molding together to form our modern understanding of vampires. There is, however, one tale that stands above the rest as the quintessential vampire story, and that is Bram Stoker's Dracula. Not only are vampires themselves creatures of everlasting life, but their stories continue to be told time and time again. In 1897, Bram Stoker published the novel Dracula, forever shaping vampire lore with his monstrous Transylvanian count. Since then, at least 80 films have been made featuring some sort of adaptation of Count Dracula, as well as thousands of other various creative works like television, video games, animation, comics, all inspired in some way by the novel and the characters. Handfuls of Dracula-inspired films are scattered across every decade since the 1920s. I mean, we've even had a few just in the last year, including Renfield, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, and you might even be able to count Abigail since it was originally slated as a Dracula's Daughter film. This is all in some way thanks to the fact that since Universal Studios' iconic 1931 adaptation, Dracula has been in the public domain. So, amongst all of these adaptations, what makes Francis Ford Coppola's 1992 adaptation, which is titled Bram Stoker's Dracula, stand above the rest? For starters, the cast is packed with legendary talent starring Gary Oldman, Winona Ryder, Anthony Hopkins, Keanu Reeves, Richard E. Grant, and Cary Elwes. Coppola used extensive rehearsal time with his cast. They were reading the entire novel together, engaging in improv exercises, playing games, and all these other bonding experiences, which really speaks to Coppola's prior experience as a drama counselor. He really wanted to create this tangible chemistry that you need to tell a story of this emotional magnitude. It also must be stated that the film is a visual masterpiece. Coppola really wanted to move away from that traditional Dracula look, you know, the one that makes you think of Bela Lugosi. His transformation is adorned with exquisite 19th century attire, which earned costume designer Aiko Ishioka an Academy Award. And it's beautifully complemented by Michelle Burke's hair and makeup design, which all draws inspiration from Catholic and angelic imagery. This new Dracula, in all of his various forms, feels regal, he feels ominous, he feels larger than life. Coming close to Dracula brings one closer to this otherworldly realm, one not meant for the living. An element of foreboding follows the Count as his shadow lurks disembodied. His presence alters the rules of physics, and we see that this man is more than just the flesh and bone that you see before you. These details, along with all of the film's visual effects, which are astonishingly created either in camera or on set, create such an eerie and artistic picture. Not to mention that all of this was accomplished within the film's $40 million budget.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
Aside from the craftsmanship behind Bram Stoker's Dracula, one of the biggest developments that sets this film apart is the story itself. The film brings everything back to the novel after decades of various spin-off films and loose renditions, any treatment you can think of for Stoker's characters. Coppola's film brings to life this epic piece of Gothic fiction, which tells the story of the mysterious Transylvanian count who is visited by Jonathan Harker to finalize some real estate purchases in London. Leaving Harker to be feasted upon by his brides, Dracula makes his way to England to prey upon Harker's fiancée Mina, as well as anyone who stands in his way. Having always been a fan of Dracula, Coppola immediately saw the promise in James Hart's script, which was brought to him by Winona Ryder when they met to discuss her departure from The Godfather 3. What is exciting about this script is that it somehow balances being one of the best adaptations of the literature while also making a couple rather dramatic alterations. It comes full circle to marry the evolution of the genre and the overall allure of vampires back into the story that started it all. Dracula is a brutal, relentless monster. He is death personified, a walking plague looming over the unsuspecting residents of Whitby. But now we see a tragic and emotionally intense Dracula, a fallen angel, to use the words of Gary Oldman. Stoker had not revealed the Count's origins, only giving the reader what was needed to understand that he was ancient and he was sinister. Depth is really added to him here through this new look and this new origin story, which are both inspired by the brutality that comes from our own reality in the form of the historic figure Vlad the Impaler. According to this film, Dracula's origins go back to 1462 during battles against the Ottoman Empire. When false news of his death travels to his bride, she is overcome by grief and jumps into the river, taking her own life. When a priest explains that her soul is condemned as she lays at his feet like Ophelia, Dracula feels that this condemnation is a betrayal, a very unfair return on the faith and loyalty with which he served the church. Enraged, he denounces God, promising to avenge his love's death. He pierces the cross with his sword, and he partakes in what I would like to call a blasphemous communion, drinking the blood that flows from it. He condemns his own soul. If he cannot be reunited with his love, then he does not wish to die a man's death. This is what really excites me about vampire films. Not just the inherent terror of undead creatures that survive off the blood of unwilling victims, aka the horrific monster that Stoker really intended to create, but how that bloodlust translates into a romantic and sexual lust, a deep, eternal longing. There is a duality of tragedy and monstrosity that exists in vampirism. Becoming inhuman exposes the meaning of humanity for those who are doomed. And for Dracula in this film, that meaning is best shown in his sentiment that the luckiest man who walks on this earth
is the one who finds true love,
which he laments as he stares into the portrait of Mina. This is where the film, with its exploration of destiny and the powers of time, takes another large turn away from the novel, with Mina's relationship with Dracula. This entirely alters her role in the narrative. Unbeknownst to Dracula, he would eventually be reunited with his love, who is now reincarnated as Mina. In the novel, however, without this implication of a tragic backstory, Dracula really just preys on Mina because he can, and simply because he greedily wishes to add her to his harem of undead wives, but not without first torturing her fiancé and killing her childhood best friend Lucy. He kills anyone who poses a threat or merely is just an inconvenience to him. After unwillingly being attacked by Dracula, who just brutalized the novel's symbol of ideal Victorian womanhood, she uses the mental connection that comes with the transference of blood to aid in Van Helsing's pursuit. However, in this adaptation, her acknowledgement of her memories and her love for Dracula and her willingness to be turned by him, while it does allow for an enchanting romance, would be one of the only points of contention for very loyal fans of the novel, and maybe even the film's fans that were really rooting for a young Keanu's Jonathan. While I am hesitant to praise an altered narrative that really diminishes the agency that made Mina an exciting and intellectually stimulating character, this undying love that penetrates and defies the barriers of time and space really builds upon the lust and eroticism that is inherent to our understanding of vampire mythos. This love that opened the film in a very Romeo and Juliet style tragedy made its mark on how the genre would continue to move forward, especially in regards to media that's targeting young adults like Twilight with its love triangles, and Vampire Diaries, which features a central character that is also a doppelganger of the Salvatore brothers' past love, Catherine. Aside from deepening the humanity that exists within this undead boogeyman and a romance conjured with Mina, this film would go down in history as one of, if not the most faithful adaptation of one of the most iconic novels of all time. It is even one of the highest grossing vampire films to ever be made. Having originally grossed over $215 million, it now sits as of 2023 at an adjusted $473.5 million. Bram Stoker's Dracula is drama. It's camp, it's romance, it's fantasy, action, and it's horror. This film is everything. And it's safe to say that we will not be escaping from renditions of this infamous creature of the night anytime soon. But I will long be waiting for the day to come when one finally triumphs over Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.